Where did I leave? Okay, 1876, 22 April. The first National League Baseball game is played at the Jefferson Street grounds in Philadelphia. 1889, at noon, thousands rushed to claim land in the land rush of 1889. Within a matter of hours, the cities of Oklahoma City and Guthrie are formed with populations of over 10,000 each. 1898, the Spanish-American War. President William McKinley calls for 125,000 volunteers to join the National Guard and fight in Cuba, while Congress more than doubles regular army forces to 65,000. 1930, the United Kingdom, Japan, and the United States signed the London Naval Treaty regulating submarine warfare and limiting shipbuilding. 1944, the first Air Commando Group, using Sikorsky R-4 helicopters, stages the first use of helicopters in combat, with combat search and rescue operations inside the China-Burma-India theater. 1954, the Red Scare. Witnesses begin testifying and live television coverage of the Army McCarthy hearings begins. 1969, British yachtsman Sir Robin Cox Johnston wins the Sunday Times Golden Globe race and completes the first solo non-stop circumnavigation of the world. 23 April, 1348. The founding of the Order of the Garter by King Edward III is announced on St. George's Day. 1516, the Munich Reinheitsgebot regarding the ingredients of beer takes effect in all of Bavaria, and I believe it remains in effect up until this very day. 1635, the first public school in the United States, the Boston Latin School, is founded. 1661, King Charles II of England, Scotland, and Ireland is crowned in Westminster Abbey, thus ending England's first and only experiment with republicanism. 1879, fire burns down the second main building and dome of the University of Notre Dame, which prompts the construction of the third and current main building with its famous Golden Dome. 1945, World War II, Adolf Hitler's designated successor, Hermann Goering, sends him a telegram in one of history's great miscalculations, asking permission to take leadership of Nazi Germany. Martin Bormann and Joseph Goebbels advise Goering that the telegram is fucking treason. 1967, Soviet space program. Soyuz 1, a crewed spaceflight carrying cosmonaut Colonel Vladimir Komarov, is launched into orbit. Stay tuned for how it ends. 1968, Vietnam War. Student protesters at Columbia University in New York City take over administration buildings and shut down the university. Tell me if any of this sounds strangely familiar. 1985, Coca-Cola changes its formula and releases new Coke. The response is overwhelmingly negative, and the original formula is back on the market in less than 3 months. 2005, the very first YouTube video titled Me at the Zoo is published by co-founder Jawed Karim. 24 April, 1183 BC, traditional reckoning of the fall of Troy, marking the end of the legendary Trojan War given by chief librarian of the Library of Alexandria, Eratosthenes, among others. 1558, Mary Queen of Scots marries the Dauphin of France, Francois, at Notre Dame de Paris. 1704, the first regular newspaper in British colonial America, the Boston Newsletter, is first published. 1800, the United States Library of Congress is established when President John Adams signs legislation to appropriate $5,000, such a princely sum, to purchase, quote, such books as may be necessary for the use of Congress. 1885, American sharpshooter Annie Oakley is hired by Nate Salisbury to be a part of Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. 1916, the Easter Rising. Irish rebels led by Patrick Pearse and James Connolly launch an uprising in Dublin against British rule and proclaim an Irish Republic. 1916, a story we know well on this program. Ernest Shackleton and 5 men of the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition launch a lifeboat from uninhabited Elephant Island in the Southern Ocean to organize a rescue for the crew of the sunken ship Endurance. 1922, the first segment of the Imperial Wireless Chain, providing wireless telegraphy between Leafield in Oxfordshire, England, and Cairo, Egypt, comes into operation. 1953, Winston Churchill is knighted by Queen Elizabeth II, thus becoming Sir Winston Churchill. He was offered any title or peerage he wanted, and he just took the knighthood. 1967, cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov dies in Soyuz 1. When his parachute fails to open, he is the first human to die during a space mission. 1967, the Vietnam War. American General William Westmoreland says in a news conference that the enemy had gained support in the United States that gives him hope that he can win politically that which he cannot win militarily. 1980, 8 U.S. servicemen die in Operation Eagle Claw as they attempt to end the Iran hostage crisis. 1990, STS-31. The Hubble Space Telescope is launched from Space Shuttle Discovery. 2005, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger is inaugurated as the 265th Pope of the Catholic Church, taking the name Pope Benedict XVI. 25 April, 799. After mistreatment and disfigurement by the citizens of Rome, Pope Leo III flees to the Frankish court of King Charlemagne at Paderborn for protection. 1607, the 80 Years' War. The Dutch fleet destroys the anchored Spanish fleet at Gibraltar. 1707, a coalition of Britain, the Netherlands, and Portugal is defeated by a Franco-Spanish army at Almanza, Spain in the War of the Spanish Succession. 1792, highwayman Nicolas J. Pelletier becomes the first person ever executed by guillotine. 1846, the Thornton Affair. Open conflict begins over the disputed border of Texas, triggering the Mexican-American War. 1849, the Governor-General of Canada, Lord Elgin, signs the Rebellion Losses Bill, outraging Montreal's English population and triggering the Montreal riots. 1859, British and French engineers break ground for the Suez Canal. 1862, American Civil War. Forces under U.S. Admiral David Farragut demand the surrender of the Confederate city of New Orleans, Louisiana. 1901, New York becomes the first U.S. state to require automobile license plates. 1915, World War I, the Battle of Gallipoli begins, the invasion of the Turkish Gallipoli Peninsula by British, French, Indian, Newfoundland, Australian, and New Zealand troops begins with landings at Anzac Cove and Cape Helles. 1933, Nazi Germany issues the law against overcrowding in schools and universities, limiting the number of Jewish students able to attend schools and universities. Again, stop me if this one sounds weirdly familiar. 1945, World War II. The last German troops retreat from Finnish soil in Lapland, ending the Lapland War. Military actions of the Second World War end in Finland. 1953, Francis Crick and James Watson published the molecular structure of nucleic acids, a structure for, I'm not going to say that word, nucleic acid, describing the double helix structure of DNA. 1960, the United States Navy submarine USS Triton completes the first submerged circumnavigation of the globe. 1982, Israel completes its withdrawal from the Sinai Peninsula per the Camp David Accords. 2007, Boris Yeltsin's funeral is the first to be sanctioned by the Russian Orthodox Church for a head of state since the funeral of Emperor Alexander III in 1894. 26 April, 1478. The Pazzi family attack on Lorenzo de' Medici in order to displace the ruling Medici family kills his brother Giuliano during High Mass in the Florence Cathedral. 1777, Sybil Ludington, age 16, allegedly rides 40 miles to alert American colonial forces to the approach of the British forces. 1803, thousands of meteor fragments fall from the skies of L'Aigle, France. The event convinces European scientists that meteors exist. 1805, First Barbary War, United States Marines captured Dern under the command of First Lieutenant Presley O'Bannon. 1865, Union cavalry troopers corner and shoot dead the scoundrel John Wilkes Booth, assassin of President Abraham Lincoln, in rural Virginia. 1920, ice hockey makes its Olympic debut at the Antwerp Games with center Frank Fredrickson scoring 7 goals. That's a double hat trick plus one, for Christ's sake, in Canada's 12-1 drubbing of Sweden in the gold medal match. 1923, Prince Albert, Duke of York, the future King George VI, weds Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon at Westminster Abbey. 1954, the first clinical trials of Jonas Salk's polio vaccine begin in Fairfax County, Virginia. In 1986, the Chernobyl disaster occurs in the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. 2015, Nursultan Nazarbayev is re-elected president of Kazakhstan with 97.7% of the vote in an election that CNN called the most secure in history, and that is all I've got.
magnificent.